Welcome back. U.S. Senator said it begins. Bitcoin and crypto brace for an $80 trillion U.S. price bombshell. This is the Cryptoviser podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the $250,000 Bitcoin price. We're also going to be talking about a bank that has just released a new Bitcoin reserve calculator and what this means for the crypto space. We're going to be talking about Polygon Labs. We're also going to be talking about MicroStrategy and the whole Ethereum debacle with Bybit and $1.4 billion being hacked. I also have a separate video specifically on that called Roll Back Ethereum. We got a lot to talk about. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Give the video a free thumbs up if you want to help support. Super chats down below in the comment section, or you can click the join button to learn more about becoming a channel member and supporting this channel financially. Let's get right into it. So this is from Forbes, and basically they're talking about what is going on with kind of the sovereign wealth fund or the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Now, as a sovereign wealth fund suddenly kicks off the global Bitcoin adoption race, Bitcoin backing US Senator Cynthia Lummis has primed the market for a major legislative update as Michael Saylor pitches his $80 trillion plan for digital economy dominance. Obviously, having to do with Bitcoin, Lummis posted to X saying, "And so it begins," quoting a post by the account of the U.S. Senate Banking Committee on which he serves that queued up a subcommittee hearing on Bitcoin and crypto legislation. The committee is going to be meeting this week, end of February. Um, I think everything's kind of setting up, right? Like I said, this whole strategic Bitcoin reserve situation that we've been hearing about, is it going to happen the way that everybody thinks, where the U.S. is just going to start buying up, billions and billions of dollars of Bitcoin? Are they going to go on a daily Bitcoin buying spree similar to what El Salvador is doing? Are they just going to hold the Bitcoin that the U.S. government already has in a strategic reserve and not actually sell it? There's so many different question marks that we have, right? And I don't think that whatever the plan is, to me, it seems like the most important thing right now is just clarity legislation for stable coins, for which agency oversees which, aspect of crypto and all of that. And then I think they'll probably look at what, like actually buying Bitcoin in some type of reserve. And this could, again, take multiple years to kind of move through. But Michael Saylor, who we know is CEO of, or he was founder, I should say, of MicroStrategy. He's no longer CEO. He says Bitcoin is an economic armor and calls on the U.S. to actually start accumulating Bitcoin. So we have to understand, right? Michael Saylor is meeting at Mar-a-Lago with many of these advisors to the president. We know that Senator Lummis is pushing this strategic Bitcoin reserve. We're seeing states around the country pushing strategic Bitcoin reserves for their individual states. And now Michael Saylor is calling on the US government to accumulate Bitcoin to eliminate the national debt and benefit its citizens and taxpayers. At one of the political conferences, he said that Bitcoin is the ultimate form of economic sovereignty and sound money. He emphasized that the Bitcoin aligns with Satoshi Nakamoto's vision, empowering individuals against centralized entities like governments, banks, and big techs. According to Saylor, Bitcoin represents censorship resistance, yada, yada, yada. He detailed how adopting Bitcoin transformed his company, MicroStrategy, now known as Strategy, shifting it from stagnation to exponential growth. He argues that Bitcoin offers businesses an escape from bank dependence, government monetary policies, and inflationary currencies. And so this is where he's calling on the US government to buy Bitcoin. He said there's only room for one nation state, one government to buy up 20% of the network, and that should be the United States. Now, why he's saying this, I don't really fully understand, right? Because essentially 100% of the Bitcoin, at full supply is 21 million, right? We know that some of that is lost. 1 million, which is Satoshi's wallet, so that's 20 million left. And then people estimate between 4 and 5 million Bitcoin are lost forever due to hacks or due to lost private keys and all of that. Maybe that number's less, maybe it's more, I don't know. I would imagine it's probably around 4 or 5 million. Because remember, at the beginning, early days, people were transacting, tens of thousands and millions of Bitcoin because they weren't worth anything. So they could have lost those wallets or never touched it or whatever. I would say about 5 million. So that would bring us down to 15 million. And then we know where, some of that is with these large companies and ETFs and countries owning Bitcoin. but that's still not that much Bitcoin. So 20% of the rest of that, let's just say 13 million or 12 million, 12 million, 25% would be 3 million Bitcoin. And so, I mean, obviously this would push the price up significantly, but there could be more than one government that accumulates that much over the course of time. Is it going to be the US? Is it going to be other countries? Is it going to be a combination? I don't know. It is very interesting that he's saying this. I just don't understand what math he gets to understand that only one nation state can actually do this. Um, because you guys also have to remember the US has been accumulating Bitcoin, right? BlackRock with the ETF, Fidelity with their ETF, all the Bitcoin mining companies. This is all US based. So technically it's within the United States, right? It's within the United States economic center. It's not in other countries. And so the US is already accumulating, He believes that if the US acquire between 4 and 6 million Bitcoin, it could generate $50 trillion to $80 trillion in benefits to American citizens. He highlighted Bitcoin as the economic armor and all of that, and that's why. He said no mayor, no government, no collectivist, no socialist can debank you. They can't take your money away. They can't impoverish you. Talking about Bitcoin. And so this brings us to understanding where the future is for this economic ecosystem, right? Because for me, as an investor and analyst of these markets, you have to look at like what is coming, where we are going, because that's where you look to invest, right? People who are investing in AI the last 3 years, there's people who were investing in AI 10 years ago, right? And so their valuations have come up significantly. The ones 2, 3 years ago, maybe they've come up, but there were people who were investing in this beforehand. Same thing with crypto. And now we're seeing banks and financial institutions like Van Eck. They posted on their website. This is a US strategic Bitcoin reserve could help offset the national debt. And so they created this calculator to explore hypothetical outcomes inspired by the Bitcoin Act, which proposes that the US Treasury acquire up to 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years, that's 200,000 Bitcoin per year, and hold it in a strategic Bitcoin reserve for at least 20 years as a store of value to strengthen the nation's balance sheet. So you can explore hypothetical outcomes by changing the US debt growth rates, average Bitcoin acquisition prices, Bitcoin price growth rates, and the total quantity of Bitcoin acquired to visualize how a national Bitcoin reserve could potentially offset US debt. So I saw this and I was like, it's very interesting. So let's go through it. Don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up and also hit the subscribe button. That way you never miss anything. So right now we're at $36 trillion in debt. This is the US debt clock, $36.5 trillion. Just to give you guys some insight, when I started this channel back in 2018, this number was at $19 trillion. I can almost not believe it myself. So essentially, since I started this channel in 2018, that's about 8 years, we have doubled the entire national debt from 19 trillion to 36.5 trillion. I mean, this is very accelerated growth. And so it's not sustainable. Even with the things that Doge is doing by cutting massive contracts and cutting leases and cutting some of this excess waste. And obviously, this is just the beginning, right? Doge is going to be around at least until the middle of 2026. We're still going to be spending at exorbitant rates, right? We may slow this national debt situation down, but we have to reverse it, right? We have to start paying down the national debt. And there are a lot of conversations about whether this is going to happen. I mean, like I said, Michael Saylor has been meeting with the president and his advisors at the White House, or at Mar-a-Lago, I should say. We know that a lot of the states are starting to introduce Bitcoin reserves. We heard the president say, maybe we could pay off some of the debt by just paying other countries some Bitcoin. So these kind of conversations are already happening. And I think that they will try it to some level. Maybe it won't be as much Bitcoin as we want them to interact with. But I think that they're going to do it to some level. So you can see here, the US national debt value currently is 36 trillion US. What compounding annual growth rate will we bring this to? And then it'll show you the actual debt if we can keep compounding this growth by 2049. Now, I remind you, in about 8 years, we went from 19 trillion to 36 trillion. In 8 years. Another 8 years from now would be 33, and then another 8 years from then would be 2040. I don't know. If we keep double this to about 70, and then 140, and then 210. Yeah, I actually think that it's gonna be much higher than 116 at 5% growth rate, but we'll max this at the 10% growth rate. And that would bring us to $355 trillion in debt by 2049. But if we have a Bitcoin reserve, it says the average acquisition price of Bitcoin, 100,000, 150, 200, 250,000. I wish there were more options here, but there are not. We'll go with 100,000. I do think that in the next bear market, which is probably going to be 2027-ish, I think that bear market is going to bring us, probably at the $100,000 and lower price range. But I don't know how much lower under 100,000 it will go. It really depends how high we go in this cycle. If we only go up to 150,000, maybe we'll come down to 75,000. But either way, we'll just put it at $100,000. The compounding annual growth rate of Bitcoin, it's showing here 25%, which if you look at the last decade, year over year is about 25%. So we'll just bring it down to 20%. And the total Bitcoin acquired by the Treasury by 2029, which is about 4 years, they're saying 1 million. Let's up it to 2 million. Okay. So this shows that the Bitcoin Treasury Reserve value in 2049 would be $16 trillion. And this would be 4% of the US national debt. Now, if I bring this down to 5% on compounding growth rate for the US debt, this will show, it should say 1/10, but let me change that. 14% of the national debt. And you can see here on the chart that they visualize how a US Bitcoin reserve could offset debt over time. Is it really going to make a difference? It really depends on where Bitcoin goes. Now, I believe that if governments start buying Bitcoin, we're going to see much larger annual growth rates. And again, this is, I would say, averaged over time, because there are going to be some years where the growth rate of Bitcoin is hundreds of percents, and there'll be some years where it's negative, as we've seen with history. But if we have a $36 trillion US debt, 5% annual growth rate, it will bring us to $116 trillion in 2049. But if the US buys 2 million Bitcoin at $100,000 at 30% annual growth, that will make the Bitcoin treasury in 2049 $109 trillion, which will be 94% of the debt. And then the US can start paying it down. Now, again, these are just preliminary numbers and kind of to visualize what it would look like. In my view, there is no negative that I see in the next 10 years if the US government starts investing in this to offset some of the debt, to become the dominant holder in the world, because this will also send a message to companies: do it. To developers, build. To companies, integrate blockchain. And it won't only grow from just the US buying it. It will grow because of everything else that the US is encouraging from a development standpoint and an education standpoint. I mean, growing up, we barely heard about investing. We would just hear, oh, you need the 401k, you need a pension. And the new generation, they don't have pensions, and they have no idea what a 401k is, how to use it, what the benefits are, and maybe it's not even worth it, right? They go, oh, I just got a job, and my job is giving me a 401k match of 4%. It's great. How much are you making a year? $50,000. Okay, 4% is $2,000, meaning you put $2,000 in and they put $2,000 in. That's not enough. $4,000 is not enough to save for your retirement. It's just not. It's something, yes, but it's not enough. And you don't have any access to any of that money. I mean, you do have access to it, but you'll be taxed if you pull money out. And also they give a penalty if you're early withdrawal before you're, 65 or something like that. So there's a lot of risks. But I think that if the US does the Bitcoin reserve, I think that the positive implications for that from a economic standpoint, from an education standpoint, from an integration standpoint of all this technology could be very, very positive. I hope it happens, because I think about the future generations and are they going to be able to retire? Are they going to be able to buy a house? Is there a pathway to get to being successful, right? And if The generation doesn't think that there's a pathway to it. They're making $100,000 a year, work a good job, and they still have nothing because all their expenses around them have gone up substantially. That is not great. And I think this is a lot of what you hear Elon talking about. Like, there needs to be hope for the next generation. I think going to Mars and creating, if we don't start now and we want to get to Mars in 5 years, well, we didn't start 5 years ago. If we started 5 years ago, maybe we'll be in Mars in 5 years, right? So anyway, same thing with this new technology. And by the way, the banks are already involved. The banks are already starting, right? This is from February 19th, right? Just a few days ago on Fidelity's website. Investing in Bitcoin, what to consider, a closer look at the crypto's top criticisms and their counter arguments. And by the way, Fidelity has been mining Bitcoin in their offices since 2014. Okay, and now you can hold and buy and trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin on their platform. And so it's already here. And yes, we are all looking at the prices and saying when is the number going to go up? But if we really think longer term, retirement age, there's going to be a lot of people, most of the people who work with you that don't invest a dime now and maybe don't start investing for 10 years. And you're going to be 10 years ahead from where they are. And I'm not saying this because it's really tragic in general that most people are not investing in anything, let alone crypto, for the long term. But there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to be able to retire, that are going to work for 40 years and say, wow, I'm ready for retirement. And then they look at their bank account and they can't do it. And I find that really, really sad, especially for people who want to retire and they're working towards retirement, but they're not thinking about the financial aspect. And I think that's why the education piece is super important. YouTube is free. Myself, most of the stuff that I've learned in the investing world has been for free, right? YouTube and social media. And a lot of YouTubers I watch, their success has come from learning from others' successes by watching YouTube videos. There's a lot of people who think that that's not the case, and that going to a college and sitting in front of professors like Gary Gensler is going to lead you to immediate success once you graduate. It's incredible. Anyway, while all that positive is happening in crypto, and we're talking about national strategic reserve, and banks are creating these Bitcoin reserve calculators, and Fidelity is saying what should you consider when you're investing. Here comes the Karen of the banking ecosystem, JP Morgan, issuing serious Wall Street Bitcoin price warnings. Like, you cannot make it up. You can't make it up. And so, let's see. Where is this part about JP Morgan? Okay, so JP Morgan's, this is Samson Mao. Okay, JP Morgan analysts have warned that weakening institutional demand for Bitcoin and Ethereum futures is a bearish signal for crypto markets in the near term that could send the Bitcoin price sharply lower. They said, quote, "This is a negative development and indicative of demand weakness by those institutional investors that use regulated CME futures contracts to gain exposure into these two cryptocurrencies." The bank's analysts wrote in a note to the block, adding that futures prices could fall below spot prices, a situation last seen in the summer of 2024. They said both Bitcoin and Ethereum momentum signals have been downshifting over the past couple of months, with the Ethereum momentum signal having shifted already in the negative territory. They said the Bitcoin rally has stalled and turned sideways amid a price drift away from record highs confirmed by the momentum indicators and relative strength readings to the benchmark safe haven store of value gold, according to Sevens Reports research. Now, here's the deal, guys. When I start seeing reports like this, when we're talking about the Bitcoin reserve, when we're seeing Michael Saylor meeting with the advisors to the president on a regular basis, banks, US debt, it just makes me just reconsider. Like, JP Morgan knows that people are shifting to crypto. They know it. They would not be researching and getting involved in blockchain for years without saying it. I was talking to somebody who actually spoke with Jamie Dimon about some of this. And, I said to the person that I believe that the banks are saying these negative things about crypto to give them enough time to basically control crypto, right? JP Morgan knows the flows of crypto. We've talked about this for years. The bank that banks Gemini Crypto Exchange and Coinbase Crypto Exchange is JP Morgan. So JP Morgan sees all the flows into and out of the exchanges. And I would imagine some of this money is exceeding some departments within JP Morgan, right? And so I do believe that the banks are involved in crypto more heavily than they admit to. And I think that all of this FUD that they push out is for other institutions or companies to be, I'm not wary about Bitcoin. I'm not going to invest in Bitcoin. We're not going to do a reserve strategy like MicroStrategy. And the whole purpose of it is to delay and distract away from it. But meanwhile, it's not going to stop where Bitcoin is going because Bitcoin is anti-bank, right? The whole premise of crypto and Bitcoin is to become your own bank. You don't need that intermediary. You don't need JP Morgan in the middle blocking your transactions. I've told you guys, JP Morgan, I was sending money from myself to myself, just one account to another. And they kept blocking it as fraud. They're like, oh, well, you sent it to the person and they're the same name. I'm like, it's because it's me. I'm sending it to myself. They're like, oh, okay. Unlock the account. And then they're like, okay, you could proceed. Sent the money again. And then they blocked it again. It's like, are you serious? Right? You don't have to do any of that within the crypto world. Anyway, Polygon, and by the way, most other banks don't block those kind of transactions either. It's ridiculous. Anyway, Polygon Labs CEO predicts Bitcoin could reach $250,000. Most people just don't understand. And so, by the way, this brings us to Polygon, but also this Bitcoin price. So we'll start with the Bitcoin price, and then I really want to focus on this Polygon situation. So the CEO of Polygon Labs said, I don't know, on the other side, I'll have a little fun and go as the $250,000 non-financial advice estimate. Speaking at a roundtable, he explained why he sees long-term Bitcoin growth as inevitable despite short-term market fluctuations. He said, I think Bitcoin is the easiest financial asset to make a decision on in the world that most people just don't understand. It is. I mean, like I say, anybody asks me, Cryptoviser, like off of YouTube, like what asset should I invest in? I'm like, well, I don't give advice, but I would only invest in Bitcoin, especially if you're not like watching these kind of videos every day and really educating yourself. The rest of the market it's a question over the long term, right? But Bitcoin is almost a sure thing in the long term. Store of value, continued growth, offset to the money printing. Now, where the price is going to go this cycle, I don't know. He's saying $250,000. Last cycle, I said this cycle would be about $250,000. Right now, I'm kind of more on the side of about $150,000, maybe $175,000, because keep in mind the ETFs have already been buying. Michael Saylor has already been buying billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, and the price is not moving above $100,000. Who is selling all this Bitcoin? Where is all this liquidity coming from? That's what I really don't understand. Anyway, he said, you've got one asset that has a fixed supply, and all you need to do is figure out, is demand going to increase for this asset or not? It's literally that simple. And what do most people believe? It's probably going to go up over the long term. He said, all I know is that over a long period of time, Bitcoin is going up because demand for Bitcoin is going to go up, and that supply is not going to change. Completely agree. And this brings us to Polygon, right? Polygon, in my view, is one of the most undervalued cryptos this cycle. Okay, when we're talking about what's happening with Ethereum, Ethereum is, in my view, going to be moving much, much higher in the next 30, 60, 90 days. And with that, and the more Solana drain we see, more funds coming out of Solana and going into Ethereum. It's also going into Ethereum layer 2s and Ethereum adjacent blockchains like Avalanche, Chainlink, all these other interconnected chains that basically developed with this kind of cross-chain situation in mind. And Polygon is fully distributed, right? Formerly Matic, some of the market cap is still in Matic, some of it is in Polygon. It doesn't really matter. It's the same exact coin. But It has a lot built on it, number one. Number two, there's a lot of development going on. Number three, there's a lot of integrations with real world programs and DeFi that we already know about, built on Polygon. And a lot of these NFTs that we saw, the likes of the president issuing, these are deployed on Polygon. And so, another really important aspect is that Polygon has no more unlocks. All the coins are distributed. The total supply is completely accessible. This happened during the bear market. I covered it on this channel when it did happen, when the final coin was minted or released or whatever the situation was, but it's fully distributed, right? A lot of these other major top coins, you can go to token.unlocks.app and you can see how many of these coins still have unlocks coming up. March 1, Solana has a $1.2 billion unlock from Genesis from the beginning. And so they're releasing $1 billion worth of coins onto the market. You don't think that's going to have negative implications for the price? I mean, hello. XRP, billion coins every single month are released to Ripple to sell onto the open market. You don't think that's going to have an impact on the price? Cardano, continuing to inflate their circulating supply. The difference between this cycle and last cycle is, I think, 4 to 5 billion coins. So, you times that by $5, it's $20 billion right there. And so can Cardano get to $5, $10? $10 would be basically 40 or $50 billion more than previous cycle because the number of ADA has inflated, right? Not the maximum supply, the circulating supply. And so on and so forth. A lot of these coins are still emitting new coins, and this is a net negative for the overall ecosystem. Polygon, it's all distributed already. So listen, 29 cents. The last all-time record high was $2.90 last cycle. That's 10x from where we are currently at 29 cents. I think it's going up much higher. Listen, I could be wrong on this. I hope I'm not, but I could be wrong. But I'm definitely pretty bullish on Polygon compared to a lot of these other kind of layer 2 or Ethereum adjacent chains out there for the next pump in the market. I'm not saying they're not going to perform. I just think that Polygon has a better possible performance move to the upside based on those things that we talked about. Anyway, moving right along. So while we have Polygon CEO saying $250,000 Bitcoin is coming, JP Morgan warning about Bitcoin, yada, yada, yada. Strategies, Michael Saylor hints at resuming Bitcoin buying spree. Now, keep in mind, I'm recording this over the weekend, so I don't know exactly what happened. By the time you guys are watching this, you already know if they bought more, but it looks like they're buying more. What we've been seeing is when Michael Saylor posts this kind of chart that shows their purchases, where the prices are and all of that, on a weekend, typically what follows is the announcement of purchasing. It's also very interesting to me that if you watch my video, it's called Going All In on MicroStrategy. I posted it on February 22. I would definitely recommend going and watching this video because I basically react to a MicroStrategy maximalist who believes that they're going to hit $10,000 per share. And I kind of review what he's saying and kind of break down all of that. And we're going to get back to the breakdown of that in a minute. But they're going to keep buying. Michael Saylor is going to keep buying. MicroStrategy is going to keep buying Bitcoin. Why we're not seeing really any movement in this time frame when they effectively are buying the top of the market, I don't know. It's very interesting. But every buy that they're doing at the top of the market is also bringing their dollar cost average up, which is also more risk if the market doesn't have any other catalysts. If we don't get that strategic reserve, or at least immediately, right? Because the market is pricing in a strategic reserve. And so if a strategic reserve either doesn't happen or gets delayed, the market has to pull that pricing, that pre-pricing out. And so that could pull the price down significantly. And what other major catalyst is going to bring Bitcoin back up to that potential? If another company says we're buying Bitcoin, it's like, great, but that's not nation state level. And so if we do get nation state level, if we do see the US saying we're going all in on this Bitcoin reserve, I mean, all bets are off. $200,000, $300,000 Bitcoin could happen overnight, just based on the speculative move, right? Because people are going to start pulling their sell orders out of the market because they're going to be like, wait, if the US government is going to buy, they're going to buy at any price. And so if they're buying at 125,000 and my sell order's there, if I pull it out, maybe they'll buy at 150,000. And so this speculation can push the price so high, and MicroStrategy can then follow and move so high that maybe $10,000 will happen. I would definitely recommend watching the video so that way you get a better understanding of my view on it. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think it's also important to understand the other aspects of what's happening in the market, because what I keep going back to is at some point we're going to go back to the fundamentals. And so what that means is that the pricing in the market is going to move back to the cryptos that have fundamentals like Ethereum, Polygon, Bitcoin, et cetera, and out of the meme coin situation in Solana, right, which we're already starting to see happen, but it's going to happen even faster. And once you go back to fundamentals, there may be a speculative move back to fundamentals, but then once you really look at the fundamentals, pricing is like there is a fair market value of where a price should be. And then there's what people are willing to pay. Once you really break down the fundamentals, you're only going to be at what I'm willing to pay, right? It's the same thing like a car. Cars over the last few years, they're selling cars 100,000, 125,000. People were willing to pay that. So they kept raising the prices. But then when you get back down to fundamentals, you're like, wait, I could buy a 2-year-old vehicle that is basically the same as the brand new one for $50,000 and save $75,000 from buying a new one. And then what are people going to do? They're going to buy the used vehicle because the fundamentals tell them I'm only going to pay $50,000. I'm not paying $125,000 for that. Nothing is different from that used vehicle, except it's maybe a little bit used, right? Same thing here. And so what I talked about in this video about this $10,000 per share MicroStrategy is that to get to this, I don't know, 1% of, I don't know what Michael Saylor wants to do, 1 million Bitcoin, 2 million Bitcoin for MicroStrategy. But on the way up there, you have to look at fundamentals. So somebody posted this on X and said, Grok said, I'd estimate MicroStrategy at $2,800 to $3,500 by the end of 2025. This assumes that Bitcoin hits $175,000. MicroStrategy adds 100,000 Bitcoin, and the market sustains a 1.8 to 2x premium with moderate dilution. It's a bold climb from today's $337 MicroStrategy price in February, implying an 8 to 10x return, but this aligns with Bitcoin's levered trajectory. So this is what somebody wrote in the group called Irresponsibly Long MSTR. Now, in response, this guy, who's a Bitcoin and macro strategist, I guess, Matt, he said, because people don't verify numbers for themselves, if MicroStrategy gets to 600,000 coins, assuming no share dilution, sustains a 2x premium, and Bitcoin reaches $175, that would give a stock price of $738, not $2,800 to $3,500. Now, keep in mind, a lot of people are using AI recently, and they are taking what AI is saying for what it is. I've used it for like, hey, tell me, should I invest in this? What are the pros, the cons? A lot of it is very basic, right? It doesn't go as in depth as what we do on this video, what we did in this video, MicroStrategy to hit 10,000 per share, because we do talk about for MicroStrategy to buy another 100,000 Bitcoin, bringing it to 600,000 coins, they have to dilute their shares, period. They have to. And not only do they have to, we know that they are, right? I think it was the end of January in 2025. They had a vote to increase the number of shares from 300 million to 10 billion. That's a 30x. And what are they going to be doing with those shares? They're going to be selling them on the market to take the proceeds and then buy more Bitcoin, right? That is share dilution. Although some people are saying it's not share dilution because they're buying the Bitcoin, so they have an asset to back the share that they're selling. The shares are at a 2x premium right now, meaning the share of MicroStrategy is around $350 or something like that. And so $350, 50% of that is Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin premium is 100%. You're paying 100% more just to have that share. And so it's really important that you guys understand these numbers, because as MicroStrategy sells some of these shares on the market, it increases the number of total shares. This is an increase in the supply. And when there's an increase in the supply and the same or a smaller increase in the demand, price goes down. Huge risk there, huge risk. But yeah, definitely go watch this video if you haven't already. Going all in, good or bad investment, and that is the thumbnail right there. Anyway, I did a whole separate video. It's called Rolling Back Ethereum. I definitely recommend watching that. If it's not out already, it'll be out tomorrow. Basically, it's about Solana and Bitcoin maxis basically calling for Ethereum to be rolled back after the $1.4 billion Bybit hack. Personally, I don't think that it's going to happen. Everything that I've read from the technical team and the developer teams who work on Ethereum, they're saying it's not possible. They're also saying that this is not an Ethereum base layer issue. It's not a blockchain problem, right? This was a security issue on the front end of their custody provider. And so if the Ethereum network didn't have any issues, there's no reason to roll back the blockchain. This was a hack of a cold wallet. It wasn't a hack of the Ethereum ecosystem. But in that video called Rolling Back Ethereum, it appears that Solana maximalists and Bitcoin maximalists are trying to sabotage Ethereum by calling for this rollback and saying if they don't roll it back, then they're helping North Korea and all of this. Bottom line is, I believe that this narrative of the rollback is sabotage from the other chains, because what is starting to happen, as we've been talking about, I've only been back on this channel for about a week. And in the week, I told my viewers, I said, watch what happens. Solana is going to get drained because all the smart money is exiting Solana because of this whole meme coin situation. After Argentina, meme coin Libra situation, we started to see people exiting quickly because the big money, they're in Solana. They're not in the meme coins. And the people who are sniping these meme coins and making hundreds of millions of dollars, they're converting the money out of Solana into stable coins or keeping it in Solana. And so the big money's like, wait, I want to get out before they get out, right? And so the big money's exiting. That's why we see Solana dropping significantly. And where is that money going? It doesn't disappear, guys, right? When you see a market cap come down by 10, $20 billion, the money's not disappearing. It's just moving. Typically, when you see drains from cryptos, they drain into stable coins. They drain into the larger players, Bitcoin, Ethereum. And what we're starting to see is the Ethereum price is starting to move to the upside, regardless of all this $1.4 billion that was stolen. Do you know why it's continuing to go up? Because the fundamentals are still there. And the money is moving from Solana into Ethereum. And guys, maybe even from XRP as well. We just did a video the other day that I think it's called XRP they're selling. I don't know. Sometimes the titles of the videos are different than right here. Is XRP better? I think that this one is the one. But anyway, in one of the recent videos, they basically, we talked about a billionaire or a multimillionaire who's selling XRP as well. He's like, I made great returns on it. I'm pulling out. I'm going to go into other coins. And so when this is happening, these other ecosystems, they're starting to FUD Ethereum. Oh, we need to roll back the chain. And then if Ethereum did roll back the chain, there would be a lot of unintended consequences. Probably a lot of DeFi layer 2s, et cetera, would have major issues because of the finality of the Ethereum blockchain. And they'd say, see, Ethereum is not meant for finance. Everybody come to Solana. Unbelievable that it's actually happening instead of the Solana ecosystem and the Bitcoin ecosystem going and working to support the people who lost money in this hack, Bybit and some of their customers, and also demanding better security from third-party custodians. Instead, they're just saying, roll back the chain, roll back the chain, roll back the chain. Go watch that video. It's called Rolling Back Ethereum. Solana Maxis Try to Sabotage Ethereum. That's going to be on my channel. If it's not already, it'll be up tomorrow. But for this video, I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is a longer form video, a little bit more in depth on what is really going on, how it's all going to kind of tee up, and seeing the support from Polygon supporting the Bitcoin ecosystem and giving these large, big predictions about where it's going to go, and understanding that at the end of the day, supply demand, and understanding that Bitcoin kind of continuing to gain traction, this is going to drive the demand up, and the supply, well, we all know it's very, very limited. So let me know what you guys think. If you like these longer form videos, tell me down below in the comments. Don't forget to hit subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you when I see you. Crypto on.